Hey guys, it's Sam, and today I'm doing another unhaul. Wasn't expecting to do another unhaul necessarily before the end of the year, but my timeline for moving has moved up drastically. So as I've mentioned a few times on social media and things, I want to move back to the Midwest so desperately, and it's gotten to the point where it's like, this needs to happen as soon as possible because I am miserable where I live. So in making that decision officially, which has been building up for months, really in reality years, because I haven't wanted to live in this part of the country for years at this point, I looked at my shelves and I was like, which books do I really not care to move again, since I've moved so much, like moved house so much in the past few years. So these are all books that are read that I just was like, you know what? I don't care about you enough to move you. So there are 30 books that I'm getting rid of. In addition to that, I will also be selling these on my Twitter, so go and check that out if you are interested. It'll be US only just because of the shipping costs and because I send this media mail. But if you are interested in helping me get back to the Midwest ASAP, because I hate it here and all of the books are going to be going towards my moving fund, then check out my Twitter. I'll be making posts about these books, and if you're interested in buying them, cool. If you're not, that's totally cool too. I will be selling them to used bookstores for the remainder of anything that's left over. But I don't want to move these, and I also would like them to go towards the money that I'm using to get home, since moving across the country is expensive. So we have 30 books here. Let's get going. The first is Of Fire and Stars by Audrey Coulthurst. This is a book that I just read and reviewed this month, but I don't care to keep it around. It's a female-female romance, fantasy romance. Like I said, I've done a full review. I don't plan on continuing the series, and I don't plan on rereading this. And I don't have any reason to hold on to this, so I'm getting rid of that. Then we have Jane Unlimited by Kristen Kishore. I adore Kristen Kishore's other series, Graceling, and I liked this book, but it's not a book I'm going to reread. I also happened to listen to it on audiobook, so if anything, I would probably re-listen to it on audiobook. I liked parts of this story. This is a sort of like string theory, alternate reality, alternate timeline story. So there's like 5 stories within this story of different paths the main character could take, which was really cool. But again, just not a book that I would reread. Then we have Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. This is an adult literary fiction story. I enjoyed this story. It's a good story, but it's, again, not one I plan on rereading. You're gonna hear me say that a lot through this because these are all books that I've read. These are just not books that I plan on rereading for whatever reason. So this was fine. It's not a story that's really stuck out in my head. Like, I don't think about it a lot. I know a lot of people love this book. It's one of their favorites. It's just not a book that I like reminisce on or anything. So it's not a book I even talk about that much. Another theme you'll see in this stack. It's not a book I really talk about, so I don't really feel the need to keep it around to like keep it in my memory and in my feelings. It's already faded from my feelings with it being around on my shelves. I actually realized this is signed to me from BEA when I got it in 2015, which is my first BEA. But I'm still getting rid of it. Then we have The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. I enjoyed the story. Again, this is one I listened to on audiobook. I plan on reading this series on audio because I believe The Gentlewoman's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy or something like that is now out. I just plan on reading the audiobooks, so this isn't, again, a physical book I need to have on my shelf. Then we have Atonement by Ian McEwan. This is a book that I read like at the very beginning of BookTube. It's funny because I watched the movie way before I read the book, didn't like the movie because it wasn't what I expected based on the trailer, then ended up reading the book hoping that I would appreciate it more, sort of appreciating it more, and then rewatched the movie and still didn't really like it. So this was like a 3 stars for me, but nothing I ever really go back to. Again, like historical fiction, I always am like, I love historical fiction. I love historical fiction movies. I don't tend to like historical fiction books that much. But I'm always like, oh, I love those kinds of stories. And I'm like, no, you love period dramas in movie or miniseries form. Not the same. Then we have The River of No Return by B. Ridgway. This is a historical fiction fantasy that has to do with time travel that I recently read. Has been on my shelf for frickin' years, and I never got rid of it. I can't believe I used frickin' instead of just saying the F word, which again I'm censoring. Apparently I'm not cursing today. But this was a story that I just didn't really care about. I actually listened to it on audio, ended up giving it about 3 stars, didn't know that it was a series when I went into it, and don't plan on continuing and don't plan on rereading. Ooh, then we have a little segue into some of the series that I've had for a very long time and some series that are pretty beloved. And this is a series I also really like. Are these signed too? Because I just remembered, I was like, pretty sure, yes. These are signed and personalized because I got these signed at Y'all Fest years ago. But just because things are signed and personalized doesn't mean you can't get rid of them, because these no longer serve me and bring me joy. And I don't want to move them again because I'm never going to reread them. And that is the Under the Never Sky series by Veronica Rossi. I really love this series, but I think I love it in a nostalgic way. If I reread it, I'm not sure I'd like it so much. These are YA dystopian. These all came out, I think, in like 2013, 2012, so it's that kind of like dystopian. I did like the friendships in here. I liked the main relationship because it wasn't toxic, but I'm not gonna reread them. I don't really love dystopian these days because one, I burned out on it like everyone else, and two, sometimes life feels like a dystopia. So I don't want to engage in this at this time, and I looked at these and I was like, I don't want to move you. So I'm not. We have another series that I think people are gonna be mad about. Not mad, I mean maybe, I don't know. This is a beloved series, beloved YA series that I did read and that I enjoyed while reading. I think I gave most of them like 3.5 to 5 stars across the board, but they're a series that I forget about after I read them completely and just not something that sticks to my feelings, and that is the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. I've kept these around for a long time because I did like them when I read them. I think they're pretty to be on a shelf. They show that you love YA sci-fi and fairy tales, you know? I'm never gonna reread these. I don't love the way the series ended. I think it was tied together too nicely. It's one of my main complaints with a lot of YA series. I don't love how everyone was paired up, even though it is fairy tales, but you know, there's things I didn't like about this series, and it's just something that I'm not gonna reread. I find her writing super engaging, but she's an author that because of the series I haven't really like continued to follow her, even though like Renegades and stuff sounds interesting because I'm like, it's like candy, cotton candy that dissolves in your mouth and is so wonderful when you're like experiencing it, and then it just goes away and you forget about it. That's how I feel about these series. That's how the series is for me. So I looked at these and I was like, you know what? You are heavy, you know, a lot of books in this series, and I have no reason to keep them around anymore because there's other sci-fi that I enjoy more, mostly more adult sci-fi and like space opera and stuff, and I'm not gonna reread them. A portion of these are also signed and personalized because Marissa Meyer often goes to Y'all Fest, and that's where I get a lot of my YA books signed because it's not a shit show like BEA. Pause for a second because of all these books that have been signed. I don't care about signed books. So here's a thing that I feel like that's why I've also stopped going to like author signings. I like going to author signings where it's one author at like a local bookstore and you get to like experience them and have more time with them and things like that. I don't give a fuck about signed books. I don't. Like it doesn't matter to me, so that's why even like when you get books signed and or like you're at like BEA or something and you know the author automatically signs the book and they're like, do you want to personalize it? I'm like, not really, because I don't really care about this sign. Like it doesn't mean just because it's signed I'm going to keep it forever. You know, like I feel that way only about very few books, and that's like my Lee Bardugo books and my Erin Morgenstern books. And if I saw like any of my other favorite authors like N.K. Jemisin, or maybe like taking my Brandon Sanderson books to get signed or something, like then I would also keep those probably. But like generally speaking, I don't need every book signed. So yeah, I just don't care that much about signed books, personally. Onward, we're only halfway done. We have Midsummers Mayhem by Rajani LaRocca. This is super, super cute. Again, it's a middle grade series. It has to do with like the fae and baking, and it's adorable, and the cover is gorgeous, and I almost was like, hold on to that. But this is a book that a middle grade reader would really enjoy. I'm not gonna reread it. So I'd rather have someone who is going to be like a huge middle grade fan or a middle grade reader read it and really love it and enjoy it, where it's just gonna sit on my shelf and I'm never gonna reread it again. So that is mostly the reason for getting rid of this one. Then we have This Savage Song and Our Dark Duet by Victoria Schwab. Victoria Schwab is notoriously rough with me. I'm going to talk about one of her other books in a second. I loved This Savage Song. I really disliked Our Dark Duet, or it was more of like a disappointment for me. So this is not, again, a series that I plan on rereading. I like the premise of her books so much, and then I just feel like oftentimes she fails in the execution for me. So, ooh, I could also get rid of, I'll keep it for a little while. I was gonna say, I could get rid of Vengeful and just keep Vicious. which I might do. I'm gonna do that. I'm also getting rid of Vengeful. I'll just bring out all of her books I'm getting rid of. I'm also getting rid of A Darker Shade of Magic. I have a couple Victoria Schwab books on my shelf still. I'm keeping Vicious because Vicious is still great to me, and The Archived, which is one of my other books that I really enjoy by her. I just don't plan on rereading any of these books. I did not like Vengeful. I don't think she needed to continue on with this series. Will I read the third book in the villain series? Never say never, but I really don't want to, and I don't plan on, like, making it a priority. Again, I don't plan on rereading the This Savage Song series. I liked This Savage Song as, like, maybe considering a standalone, but again, not something I'm going to reread. And I really didn't like A Darker Shade of Magic until the final book in the series, and I listened to the final book in the series on audio. So will I probably read the next series from the A Darker Shade of Magic, like, world? Maybe. Probably. But I also plan on being disappointed. So, plan on getting rid of these. Are any of these signed? This Savage Song is signed. Our Dark Duet is not. I can't believe this. So many of these books I think I've also held on to for years because I'm like, oh, they're signed. Not that I care, but like, no one else is gonna want them. But I'm like, I don't want them. I don't want them right now. Also getting rid of A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. This is a movie edition that I got sent when the movie was coming out, and so it's not the really beautiful illustrated edition. I enjoyed this book, actually, a lot, but I would rather have the illustrated, beautiful edition because that's kind of the point of the story. So having the not illustrated edition, I think, kind of took away from the story for me. I liked the movie as well, but yeah, this copy is, I don't think about it because I'm like, this is not the form in which I should have or wanted to read this story. Then we have a series of contemporaries that I'm going to be getting rid of. Again, just because contemporaries are something I don't tend to reread. And the first one is Everything Leads to You by Nina LaCour. This is a female-female romance, which I really enjoyed. Was very cute, set around like LA. I believe it was like, yes, like movie making and stuff like that. There was a bit of a mystery to it. But contemporaries tend to be like a one and done thing for me. So although I've kept this around for a while, or sort of like feeling like I'm supporting the author in that way by keeping it around. It's not a book I talk about a lot because, again, it's just something that I forget about, hasn't stuck in my feelings. The couple were cute, but like I didn't just love them. I mean, there's very few contemporary couples that I continue to think about. So, and especially now that I'm moving more into adult contemporary like romance and stuff, I don't really feel like having this large YA contemporary romance collection because it doesn't really represent me. And if anything, at this point, I kind of want my shelves to sort of reflect my reading tastes. And why contemporary ain't it? Then we have When the Moon Was Ours and Wild Beauty by Anna Marie McLemore. I really actually enjoyed, I think, Wild Beauty a little bit more. I like both of these. These are magical realism contemporary stories, usually featuring a prominent Latinx cast and LGBT characters. There's trans rep in here, and I believe there's definitely bi rep in here. I forget like all the representations, but if you're looking for cast of characters that's POC and LGBT, these are your books. But again, these are just books I don't plan on rereading. I love how beautiful they are, but again, just not contemporary, even magical realism. I don't tend to reread. I have one magical realism that I've kept on my shelf that I do plan on rereading, and that is one of my favorite books of all time, the Beautiful Sorrows, Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender. I just don't tend to reread magical realism along with contemporary because it just feels like a one and done type thing, especially because there's some like a level of mystery attached to these that I like on first read and not so much on rereads. So, but highly recommend these though still. And again, I would like these to go into the hands of somebody who could really use the rep and seeing the rep as well. Then we have Summer of Salt by Katrina Leno. This is another magical realism, fabulism type story, a very cute like summer story, female-female romance in here as well. But again, contemporary is very one and done for me, and I don't plan on rereading this, even though I think this was like about a 4-star. But like I said, the contemporary clean out has nothing to do with the content or quality of the books or me not liking them. It's just like I don't plan on rereading them in any capacity. Like a lot of times, again, with contemporary, it's not like they're a series, so I don't have to go back and reread the first book or the first few books in the series to continue. Like I don't have any need to keep them on my shelf for like continuity or anything like that. So again, that's why the contemporary cleanout is happening. The last of the contemporaries is Pride by Edie Savoy. I feel like I just got like a fly in my throat or something. This is a Pride and Prejudice retelling that takes place, I think, in Brooklyn? Yes, Brooklyn. And this is a Afro-Latino family that you're following. This I liked, and I read it in like one sitting, but again, not when I plan on rereading. When I feel like this needed just a little bit more room to grow a bit. Like it was a good retelling, but there needed to be just a little more time. Like it felt very rushed and it didn't need to be this short. It actually could have been longer. And that slow burn Pride and Prejudice feeling I didn't quite get because it was shorter. So again, not one I plan on rereading, even as a Pride and Prejudice retelling. Just because, you know, contemporary, man. Then I'm putting these all in one category because they're kind of similar, and that is some Hades and Persephone retellings. I've done a video about Hades and Persephone. I'm gonna address this now. People keep asking for a new video. I don't have a new video on Hades and Persephone retellings because I haven't read any good ones that I can actually recommend. These are all books I talked about in the original video that I didn't think were very good, but I kept on my shelf as this like memorial to Hades and Persephone and how much I love it. But it's like, that's not reflective of Hades and Persephone because these aren't very good representations of Hades and Persephone. So I'm finally getting rid of them because I'm like, you don't need to just have these shitty Hades and Persephone retellings on your shelf. So we have The Goddess Test by Amy Carter, Underneath by Brody Ashton, and Persephone by Caitlin Bevis. Again, all Hades and Persephone kind of iterations, although Underneath does have like also an Orpheus and Eurydice thing. There's a love triangle. So like one of the characters could be Orpheus, one of the characters could be Hades, etc. The Goddess Test actually has a Persephone character. I think this is this one. But now this is the new sort of Persephone, and she's being like tested to be the new Persephone. I forget even what the plot is of Persephone. Anyway, these are all Hades and Persephone retellings, but primarily I feel that they all got Persephone wrong as this like wilting flower, and I'm like, Persephone is the queen of the fucking underworld. Get her correct, please. So these weren't super good, and I don't need to keep them because honestly, if someone was like, oh, you love Hades and Persephone because of these books, I'd be like, no, these books are actually like 2 stars and below. I don't know why I have them. Then we have the Penelope Awed by Margaret Atwood. I actually really like this story. It's a very sort of like dark reimagining of Penelope, who is Odysseus's wife from the Odyssey and the Iliad, and her story about what was going on while Odysseus was gone. Much more like women focused and women empowered and dark and stuff, but not one that I plan on rereading. I do think about this book a lot. I think about Margaret Atwood's books a lot after reading them, but never really reread them because I don't need to, because they do stick in my feelings so much. So recommend this as almost like a modern classic, but I don't need it on my shelf anymore, especially because I kept it near the like Hades and Persephone retellings as like, hey, Greek retelling land on my shelf. So now that some of those are gone, I don't really need to keep this one to keep them company. Man, these are like all retellings. Oh, that makes sense. They were all like the same part of my shelf. Duh. That's how my brain works. We have Cruel Beauty by Rosamund Hodge, a book I actually liked. Wasn't like the best book of all time, but definitely had like a Hades, Persephone, Beauty and the Beast type edge to it, a little bit darker, blah, blah, blah. But mostly just not one that I plan on rereading. I don't need to have it on my shelf really. Like, it's just, this really fell into the like, if I was staying here, I'd keep you on my shelf, but I'm not. I don't want to move you, so bye. And lastly, we have Wicked by Gregory Maguire. Yes, this is one of my oldest books that I don't know why I've never gotten rid of. It is a book that sticks out in my feelings. It was one of the first books that I read after discovering BookTube and liked it more in retrospect. This is a book that when I think about it now, I actually really enjoy it, and a lot of things I think about a lot, and a lot of what I was trying to say I think about a lot. But when I read it, I didn't have a very fun time reading it. So this is really a book I don't really plan on rereading. I don't plan on reading like his whole Oz series or anything like that. And I'll remember Wicked. Like, I don't need it on my shelf to like remind me. It's actually a book that like my eyes tend to skim over when I'm looking for books and things on my shelf. So I don't need this anymore because it's like it's gone anyway. So those are all the books that I am unhauling. Again, if you're interested in buying any of these books from me, and really it's more like you get a book, which is great, and I get some more money from my moving fund, which is cool for me. Again, you don't have to. I don't like need you to do this because again, I'll sell it to used bookstores. But typically speaking, when I do unhauls, people ask me if they can have some of these books, etc. So if you want them, they will be available. You can DM me on Twitter, so they'll be posted when this video goes up. So yeah, comment below, let me know if there's any books that you're really surprised about, or if there's any books that you feel that you'd get rid of if you were moving and didn't want to move them, which is also a sign that you should probably just get rid of them now. Make more room on your shelves. Now I did the whole like rearranging of the shelves because there were spots, obviously. That's one of the most annoying parts of unhauling, especially your red books, is then you have to rearrange everything so it looks kind of nice. So now I have some like covers out. I don't know if you can tell up here, some like covers out sections of my shelves. As you can see, nothing really changed here because these are my favorite books. So these aren't going anywhere. It's actually on the shelves that you can't really see that things have left. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye.